Hello, it is almost getting to mid-May, and what we're now trying to do for two types of updates, as you know, very centralized focus update on Athens and Oconee, and then sort of follow it up with more of a national outlook because we're having so many questions. And one of the resources we're using is Keeping Current Matters, which is where this is from. They help us stay informed on what's going on across the country, what we see in projections. So last month in April, we took a big look at sort of what was happening with the supply and demand and why this was very different than 2008. That was the biggest thing. None of that's changed, but there still is some relevant information I feel like we need to go through. So let's just get started here. I'll try to make this not too long if we can make it work. And I'm going to move my screen over here. So, basically, chief economist, as the same thing's going on, is the main driver in the housing has been shortfall and the long-term decline of construction over the last decade. So that's one thing people aren't understanding is that this has been coming, and really COVID might have exacerbated it. So over the last decade, we've had a lot less homes constructed. If you look here, here's some numbers over the last decade, and we're looking at 11 million new homes in the 70s, 9.8 in the 80s, 10.7 in the 90s, 12.6 in the first decade, which is where we got this first supply problem. And then in 2010, we've only done 6.5 new construction homes new to market. A lot of that's because of what happened in 2008. There was a crash. Builders were hurting. A lot of builders got out of the business, and only those that had great cash reserves were able to really weather that storm. So for a full decade, we've been producing almost half of what we did the decade before. Meanwhile, our population grows. So a lot of that's very predictable. It reported that last month, Google reported that there was a spike of when is the housing market going to crash was up 2,400% in the past month. So that tells us all we need to know that there is a lot of speculation out there because of how things have been moving so fast. I don't blame anybody. If I didn't work in this industry and I wasn't experiencing it firsthand, and even for us that have done it a while, this is very strange. But what we want to do is try to get you information to give you more accurate insight into what's going on instead of just sitting at your armchair telling us how it's all going to go. So this is the year over year change in listings. And you got to keep in mind that while you see these new listings are going up, total new listings, this is comparing to this same time last year. So last year we were way down because of what? COVID. And now we're coming back up. But the one thing the narrative's not telling you is while we have these new listings, they're getting gobbled up very quickly. They're not really staying on the market. Additionally, homes that might not have typically come to market are coming that are a little different than what a lot of the buyers are looking for. I myself recently sold a property that had been a rental for years because the timing was right for me. In a different climate, I would have probably not considered selling that home. It actually didn't go on the market. I couldn't get the photos done before we were able to place a client in the property. So let's take a look at the inventory levels for single family homes. 2021 single family home inventories. So basically, in 2020, you can see this is pre-pandemic because this is December, January, February, and March. 1.2, 1.2, 1 point, almost 3, and then 1.3 in March. Whereas at the same time last year, as we're coming out of the pandemic, we have so much less inventory. We're looking at 900,000 at the most. So the demand is exceeding the supply. The story is staying the same. Right here, it talks about it takes around 18 days for a home to go from listing to a contract. And a year ago, that took 29 days. When will the U.S. housing inventory grow again? Well, this is from Pulsenomics or Pulse, basically a survey of economists. And what we're looking at is this first half, we've seen a very little inventory. We're thinking we're going to see a big spurt the second half of 2021. This is a projection. This is not facts. This is the best we have to kind of gauge it. And then if you start seeing in 2022, there's some more inventory, but then, starts to taper off again. So while we have a low inventory problem, it might get a little better, but we just don't see it being fixed anytime soon. A lot of you may know the answer to this because you're thinking about it yourself. But what are the top 5 reasons homeowners plan to sell? House no longer meets your needs. You can make a profit in the current market. A lot of people have been motivated by the price of their home value. And some people want a smaller house with less work. They want to live closer to friends and family, different features and amenities. It used to be that having a pool was a negative in Athens, Georgia, to a lot of homeowners. That is flipped. The pool is a big positive. COVID changed that. So now people are looking to add that feature or they go seek it out. That's just one example. Um, Now, this is sort of what I want to talk about is people that are trying to get a little bit more confident in the market. Prospective home buyers planning to buy a home in the next 12 months. This is basically from the NAR and another group, NHAB, Housing Trends Report. So in the first quarter of 2020, 10% we're looking to get in the market, 11% in quarter two. Pandemic hit, and they're still going up to 13%. And then last year we were at a 15%. Now we're at 16%. So the amount of people interested in buying a home is actually growing, not going down. What's happening is importance is being placed on the home. And this is very different than 2008. People after that thought that maybe buying a home would become different for a lot of families and they wouldn't look at it. And it's taken a while, but that has gone away. People are now seeing the value in home ownership, even with our market being what it is, which is very difficult for home buyers. Average profit for the home sellers increased to 26% so far in the first quarter. Average of 55,000 of a profit, now up to $70,000. That is another reason for you to consider selling, and another reason that a lot of people are experiencing positive things of home ownership. Here's another quote from the NAR. This is not a bubble. It's simply a lack of supply. I know a lot of people are going to predict that there's a bubble. Hey, I was in it in 2004, 2005, 6, and 7. I'm in it now. While this is definitely crazy, it's so much metrically different. With that being said, a lot of people still talk about forbearance. So let's take a look at the actual forbearance numbers. So the number of mortgages in active forbearance for the last 3 weeks has basically stayed the same, but you can see the trends from May of last year all the way down to right here. Now, 400,000 mortgages left foreclosure in the last 2 months. So that's 400,000 mortgages that are no longer in forbearance, not foreclosure. And you see this number's kind of staying the same. It's still ticking down overall. And this is how many people have left forbearance over the last 2 months. So we're looking at 47.3% were paid in full. 36.5% worked out a repayment plan, and 16% remain in that in trouble area. And that's sort of been a slight uptick there. So let's compare these numbers. 52% paid in full about a month ago, 2 months ago. Now it's at 47, a slight decrease. However, that correlates with an increase in people that have worked out a plan. So there's sort of a 4% gain here versus a 4% loss there, sort of where that's happening. And it's almost level, 15.2, a slight uptick in people that we perceive might be in trouble. It's just not enough folks that are coming to market with a foreclosure to help this supply problem, let alone most of these properties are not upside down. They have positive equity and can sell their house, depending on the area, fairly quickly. Mortgage rates, we saw a slight uptick. We all know that. We got above 3%. We're now kind of getting back to a little bit lower. We're right now at 2.8. So just going from January 2020 up here, almost 4%, falling down to the trough of 2021. And then now we've ticked back up. We got over 3%. And now we're back down really below 3. We're back below 3, and that's a good thing. So these interest rates continue to fuel some of these prices. Mortgage rate projections, and this is important. I can't tell you exactly where these rates are going to be, but we do know they're going to go up. Right now, people are still able to achieve rates below 3%. But it is predictable to look over these quarters that you're going to see some range from 3.3 to maybe 3.4, somewhere in there, and then it's ticking up again from 3.5 to eventually 3.6. It's a projection. But with the way we're printing money, at some point, interest rates are going to have to go up. That's a fact. So they're probably not going to skyrocket, but they are going to be going up. And that's something to keep in mind as you consider what you're going to do. And here's a projection on the mortgage rates, just like we said. Right now, here's where they are, and predicting a slow increase up into 2022. 2.9 now, heading up to possibly as much as 4%, which is still awesome, by the way. Home price forecast, a lot of people have adjusted this. It was different before. Now, between a lot of different firms, you can see that we have got one group projecting a value change of 10%, 8%, 6%, and all the way down to 3.5%, with the average being 6.8% in a value equity gain as predicted by a lot of different outfits like Fannie Mae, NAR, CoreLogic, Realtor.com. So we don't see this trend turning around very soon. And again, home sales forecasted this year. That's another thing. Last year we saw records at 6.5 million, and right now they are all projecting for 2021 to have more. This is where we were last year. And look at the home sales they're predicting in 2021 and 2022. So basically, we are looking at keeping the trend the same, not reversing. That's something to keep in mind as you make your plans. Year over year change in price. As a home seller, you need to pay attention to this metric right now because the merry-go-round will stop. Okay, it's eventually going to stop, and you can't just gain $20,000 over a week. So right now, if you look at the year over year change in price, it is 11.3% currently and forecasted to go down by more than half. So we are going to have some return to normalcy eventually. And if you're selling or you're considering it as something to definitely keep in mind, that is now the time. And as a home buyer, don't expect this to all of a sudden fall off a cliff. You might just expect it to tamper down and calm down a little bit. And here we are, just year over year inventory levels. If you look here, starting in 2016, January 2017, and now the inventory levels at this point are even further low. 2019, we started to get a little turnaround, but all the metrics are saying the same thing of why this is going on. And housing supply year over year, last 12 months. As you can see, we're all in the red last 12 months. What I want you to understand is it is definitely a seller's market, but that doesn't mean the buyers are being foolish by locking in a good rate and getting where they want to and getting out of this craziness. We have had sellers that their fear simply relies around putting the shoe on the other foot. We have to use tools to help them. We've got some new things that we're doing right now to help a home seller bridge a gap and to help them find a buyer without even having to go to market. We're doing everything we can to help our buyers and sellers. So feel free to reach out to somebody for help. About 12 minutes here, trying to get you some information. The narrative's the same, but you need to know these facts to make an informed decision. So it is now May. We'll see what happens in the next 30 or 40 days. We'll probably see a lot more of the same and hopefully just a little bit more normalizing of our market. Have a great week. Reach out to anybody here at Five Market if you would like some help buying or selling or just some general questions about what's going on.